voice, they'll trickle in the back. But we're on the home stretch now. We've got 2 final sessions. First things first, we're going to hop into our penultimate session of the day, and we've got a nice twist here and a very interesting concept. I'd like to introduce Kiana Rushdan. She's over with Pfizer, and she's involved in the HCP marketing side of things. Kiana is kind enough to be able to join us today with her perspectives. A little bit, obviously she's new to pharma, so, but not new to marketing, and certainly there's a lot of translational perspectives and opinions that she'll be able to share with us from what she's seen outside of the field, and perhaps some insights on what to expect in the future as well. I know that a couple of these concepts were brought up during some panels as well. Kiana's got a fresh perspective on it. In similar fashion to the rest of the speakers, Kiana's claim to fame is she's been an avid climber herself. So she's climbed the 3rd highest peak in Borneo in Indonesia, and also Kilimanjaro. One of our other speakers earlier on in the event has ascended that. And she's always striving for greatness in the face of adversity as well. So please join me in welcoming Kiana as our penultimate speaker today.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Hoping that you get something out of this and a takeaway, but excited to hear everyone's questions and keeping it very collaborative and open. But before I begin, just a quick note here. Everything that I'm sharing today are my own views. All opinions are my own. They are not of my employers, the industries, but just from my perspective and my own shaped experiences. So I want to ground us here. Imagine yourself somewhere pictured in a dark room in Brooklyn. It's dark, lit only by the light moving across the room, and you see the hands in the air. The bass is low enough that you feel it before you hear it. And the room is full of people who arrived as strangers but leave full with a room of community, moving together to house music completely at home. I helped build that room. Before I was a marketer, before I was an MBA, before I was a sales rep and all these things, I founded Black Girls Love House Music, and I built that community alongside my co-founder. I created that platform to bring together communities. House music was born in Black and brown communities in Chicago and Detroit, if you don't know. We wanted to build a space that celebrated the lineage and welcomed everyone in to share it, somewhere where people could find one another and build joy and happiness. And let's face it, in our world today, we need all the joy and happiness and fun that we could get. Here's part of the story that matters for today. When we started, not everyone could see what we saw. The idea was new, and new things are hard to picture, especially in a big established city like New York City. So a great deal of work wasn't logistics or budgets, it was conviction. It was me being passionate enough to convince people to not only believe in the brand, but believe with a new community and a new experience. And to get them to believe in the brand before it actually was even established. I didn't have permission, I just did it. So with that being said, I would like everyone to hold on to that because that's the heart of everything that I'll be sharing with you all today. Okay, so who am I? My name is Kiana Rushdan. I am a marketing manager at Pfizer, one of the most powerful marketing powerhouses of the world, big pharma of the world. And I do want to know and be honest, I am new to pharma. I am 2.3 years in, making a pivot from my previous career. But one thing I do want to know, I am not new to marketing. Actually, today, I almost talked myself out of this talk because somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that I didn't have real marketing experience until my post-MBA experience. I'll go into that in the next slide, but previously, being in Pfizer, I was in tech sales, and I also was a biology major. I convinced myself that an MBA was the only thing that made my experience count. But I realized after reflecting that all of my experiences leading up to this point was simply preparation. And this will make sense in a few seconds. Here's what I come to believe, and I offer it as an invitation, not a critique. Our industry runs on rigor, and that rigor is a gift. It's what makes us trustworthy. As we all know, pharma is highly regulated. But the most valuable thing you can protect inside an environment is your ability to keep seeing things from a new, fresh, and innovative perspective, and the courage to act on what you see and speak up on it, even if it challenges the status quo. Earlier in my time in pharma, there was a project that most people considered too small to matter. It had a modest budget, about $5,000, which, as we all know, that's a drop in the bucket in big pharma. Easy to overlook, but I had passion behind it and conviction around it. And I even stood up for the idea in a meeting, and I was given the go-ahead to go. I did the work, I got on the ground, was able to build strategic partnerships with the sales reps to be able to support me in this initiative. And this small investment for the company ended up resulting in over thousands and thousands of touch points. And I got even recognition from some of our company presidents for my courage to act and my courage to strive for excellence and continue to push things forward for things that I believed in. In the same environment and the same constraints everyone else was looking at, the only difference was that I believed in it and I was willing to do the work to prove it. So fresh eyes are valuable, but the real gift is seeing clearly and being bold enough and passionate enough to advocate for what you see. So quickly, going back to that original point of what preparation actually was, I grew up in a small town. I went to college intending to be a doctor, the whole pre-med story, the entire plan mapped out, especially because my peers seemed to know exactly what they wanted to do for the rest of their lives. But as we all know, sometimes it just doesn't work that way, work itself out that way, and often than not, life is about the pivot. I pivoted. I went into tech sales. Then I decided that I could learn a lot, and I told myself even then, I think I want to do marketing, but what can I learn to this space? Think about what sales actually is. You study your customer, you understand their inertia, their operational friction, their pain points, and you build a story that positions your product and brand as a solution that they needed all along. And before you can do any of that, you have to build the relationship that earned you the conversation in the first place. That's positioning, and that's branding, and that is marketing at its most direct forms. Beyond all of the market research, beyond the dashboards, that's where my instincts were trained, not in the classroom per se, or in, again, with that research and data, but with the actual experience directly with the customer. Eventually, I wanted more for my life, and I hit that glass ceiling, and I had a choice, either to stay comfortable. I was great in sales. I was making a lot of money when I was younger. But I decided again to push to discomfort, because when you're uncomfortable, that's where you grow. I chose to leave, bet on myself, and I went back to school, left everything that I knew, moved upstate, and earned my MBA, and that decision is what led me here to be in front of you all today. So if you can see from my resume, it isn't linear at all. It's a series of pivots, but my fresh eyes and my experiences, my diversity experiences, led me to a career where I was able to advocate in marketing to be able to uncover and act on things that people often overlooked with our customers. Okay, so I want to also reframe, because I'm very passionate about my career now, making this pivot into this well-respected industry, but the caution is a flaw, it's a rationale. Consider everything that bears down to a single decision, all of the approvals, the FDA, the public perception, the payer obstacles that we often face as pharma marketers. You can develop the most effective medicine in the world, but if patients can't access it, it truly doesn't matter. And when the process is demanding, it can daunt and make marketers jaded to want to make quick pivots and try something new and be innovative. But let me give you the real figures here, because I think that they're important. As we know, the life cycle in pharma, according to Deloitte's 2025 analysis, they're long. It takes 10 to 15 years from discovery to approval to actually launch a product. On average, $2.67 billion in average in cost to actually bring that product to life and bring that product to market. And even then, only 1 in 10 products make it past FDA approval to launch to our customers. 10 to 15 years, nearly $2.7 billion in a 1 in 10 chance. So I understand why the instinct in pharma is to stay within the lines, do what we've always done, be risk averse, but here's what can happen over time. The way we did it last time slowly hardens into the only way that it can be done. And no one decides that, it simply accumulates until linear thinking no longer feels like a choice, it feels like gravity. So 3 things that I am observing here. Different life cycles. So here are the things that my fresh eyes saw. Different industries run on different life cycles, and obviously in tech, the boundaries are a little bit more flex. You can launch in months, test, learn, and adjust, and the cost of being wrong is comparatively low. In pharma, you're working against that 10 to 15-year horizon because stakes, safety, efficacy in human lives, because it's actually going into people's bodies, demand it. Neither is better, they're just simply different boundaries. But along the horizon, a real challenge is worth naming. By the time you launch, the world may have already moved. Consider the trends we're seeing with GLP-1. The underlying science was nowhere near new, but the cultural arrived quickly. They realized from the trends that there were other indications that can be researched on and investigated through GLP-1s, and that whole culture shift happened within days. Somebody has to keep an eye on where the world is heading to find the next bold move and breakthrough. And often the person best positioned to do that who just arrived is a person that just arrived because they're not jaded by historical constraints and difficulties in getting pharma products in the market. The second thing often that's important to recognize is that very often medicine is just as effective as your competitors. Same efficacy, same safety profile, the science is the same. So how do you differentiate yourself in a portfolio where all the medications are the same? Positioning, story, and is the very same thing that I've been trying to do as a new marketer in this space. Sometimes people are surprised when people test the status quo in this place. Bold and compliant are not mutually exclusive. Regulation constrains claim, but when you're permitted to say, it doesn't constrain imagination and how you make someone feel. And I want to bring that perspective into pharma because that's something that I've seen not consistent across the board, except with some of our well-known products like Ozempic, really touching the customer where they are and creating that emotional reaction, which I think we need to continue to include in our messaging, not only to consumers and our patients, but also our doctors as well. Here's a story, a Pfizer story actually, that I'm proud of that can kind of help the room touch grass with this aspect. So decades ago, a drug was developed to treat a heart condition. You may know where I'm going here. It was in trials, it underperformed as its intended purpose, but participants kept reporting a particular side effect. Most teams would have dismissed that as noise, chucked it, called it to the game, including to discontinue the product, but someone looked at that noise and recognized the product. That drug became Viagra, one of the most recognized medicines in the world, because someone had fresh eyes and was bold enough to act on it and bring this up to the team. The third thing, and something that's very important to me, I am a huge advocate, if you look on my LinkedIn, of health equity and diversity, because all families, regardless of socioeconomic background, race, ethnicity, psychosocial background, deserve to be healthy and live long and thriving lives. So this is the one that I care about the most. Pharma and big pharma in particular is not the most diverse environment. And if you know me, I'm not afraid to call things for what they are. While we work together and I work in rooms with the most brilliant people, many people come from similar backgrounds, and a significant number of marketers come from consulting backgrounds, which is still great, but also, I want to include that many people tend to stay at their one company for 20 or more years, which also signals that it's a great place to be. You're constantly working on challenges that are complex and motivating, and you're not doing the same things every day. But When that same room sees the world in the same way, it can develop a blind spot, as we know as biases. Let me give you a hypothetical situation to make that concrete, and a situation that I actually have experienced in real life. Imagine a team, an HEP team, building patient profiles. These portraits are of people building a brand of men suffering from prostate cancer. And imagine the therapy is for a condition, prostate cancer, that disproportionately affects Black men. In the United States, roughly 1 in 6 Black men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer compared to 1 in 8 men overall. And they are twice as likely to die from it. So this is a population with data points that require real urgency. Now imagine those same profiles take shape. Most men are drawn as physicians, attorneys, executives, busy fathers with full multidimensional lives. But the one Black man in the set is sketched as a mechanic. No mention of education, no interior life, reduced quietly to a stereotype, which doesn't reflect a mass majority of the patients that these teams might be trying to reach. No one in this scenario sets to do any harm, and there's no villain, and I'm sure this team may have not done it on purpose. It's simply a room of well-intentioned people with no one positioned to catch it, with their own lived experiences, without able to look at these smaller things that are different than what they have seen or what they may have been used to. But the consequence is that you can imagine that same patient becomes a way you speak to that physician, becomes overlooked, and now they don't have the same access to life-saving medication and prostate cancer treatment. Now imagine someone in that room speaks up and asks why that one man doesn't get the full realized person based upon the data, like everyone else on the wall. That picture grows, it grows to truer, and you run the very same exercise with pediatric profiles that quietly assume every child experiences the world the same way, leaving no room for neurodivergent children with the same blind spot in a different room. That's what diversity of thought actually delivers. Not a slogan, but a patient profile that doesn't erase the patient. And you can't do that from inside of a blind spot. You need different perspectives in the room, and you need those perspectives to feel safe enough and bold enough to speak up. Now, I want to be clear about the other side of this. I'm not encouraging anyone in pharma, obviously, to move fast, because we quite literally don't work in the industry where you could do so. Again, we are working with real people, not electronics. But that rigor also is what makes pharma deliberate and thoughtful and trustworthy. Those guardrails protect the patient and not just the market and the landscape. But being thoughtful to catch the things that people don't see builds trust in a different way, because you're reaching the customer where they are in their real life experiences. So this isn't a call to be reckless, but it's something more precise. Honor the constraints that genuinely protect people, and gently question the habits that merely feel like constraints because we've never tested them. The FDA is a constraint. We've always done it this way. It's a habit wearing a constraints clothing. The skill is knowing the difference between the two. So lastly, I want to talk about reframing failure. I've never really believed in failure, and often you get this question when you're interviewing for new roles, interviewing for promotion, and it's often to test how you adjust to uncomfortable situations. But I think failure is actually a new baseline to take a step back and to try something new. And having that latter mindset of feeling like you failed is what I believe keeps the world small. So in an industry like ours, investing millions in every decision, lives are on the line. Lives also have the opportunity to improve over time. Failure can feel like it's unthinkable, and we want to avoid those types of feelings. But if we reframe how we think about failure, we can truly, again, find a new way, a new opportunity to position something differently and find an even better way to treat our patients. Consider one of the most famous missteps in marketing history. A company launched a spray capable of eliminating nearly any odor in the home, genuinely innovative. That company was Febreze. People said that it wasn't working for them. It sat on the shelves for months, because people who needed it the most had grown accustomed to the very smells they lived with. The story was wrong, so the team circled back, did their research, spoke with real people in real homes, and noticed something small but decisive. People wanted that final spritz at the end of a cleaning as a reward, as a finishing touch for walking into a clean home, to feel refreshed, smells that reminded them of joy and happiness. Same product with an entire new positioning and a new story. The failure wasn't at the end, it was the data that they used this mishap to evolve from. You gather every insight in the world until you actually try, you'll truly never know. Sometimes you have to build it in a way my co-founder and I built Black Girls Love House Music. Put yourself out there, refine as you go, even in the midst of ambiguity. So let me take you back to that moment on that floor in Brooklyn. The reason why my co-founder and I built that room is because we're willing to see an opportunity that hadn't been pictured yet, and to stay uncomfortable long enough to act on it and bring people along with us as we continue to evolve, because those things happen in parallel. Every person in this room walked into Pharma with fresh eyes at one point of a time. You saw that thing that quite didn't make sense. You asked, curiously, why do we do it this way? Before you learned to stop asking if you did. Here's what I'd like you to carry from my talk and from this room. Fresh eyes are a gift with the expiration date. The longer you're in the building, the more it trains you to see only what it already sees. The perspective you hold right now, your lived experiences, your uniqueness, your background, no one else in the room shares. The question you're a little bit afraid to ask, I encourage you to go ahead and ask it. It's your most valuable asset. I challenge you to challenge the status quo in every meeting, because refining and realigning and coming back always presents itself with a new opportunity to be better. And So use these gifts and use these perspectives. Bring the fullness of who you are to work every day. Be bold within the guardrails that matter. Advocate for the idea no one believes in, and do the unglamorous work to prove it. And when discomfort arrives, don't retreat from it. Move forward. Because when you're uncomfortable, you are almost always either growing or standing beside the very thing that changes everything. I became comfortable with being uncomfortable, and it's the best career decision I've made so far.
Thank you, Kiana. That was a nice personal story you shared there. Would anybody like to ask any questions about Kiana? Yes, Sabrina. Get my steps up.
Thank you for the great talk. So you spoke a little bit earlier about the price tag cancer phenomenon and about how African American men are the most prominent, and how making sure that they're represented properly in that. I don't know if you're familiar with the Talk That Talk educational campaign that was done with Shannon Sharp.
Oh, yeah.
To educate around it. The company that did that campaign is Hero Collective, which is a Black-founded, Black-run agency. Do you think in representation and trying to develop campaigns or initiatives like this that, agencies that need to be representative of the population that they're trying to campaign for as well?
I don't actually think they do. I think that we have to be thoughtful in doing the research. In this particular story, from what I saw, originally this population wasn't even included, even though the research says that this population is highly affected by prostate cancer. I think that you just have to be self-aware of the trends through real patient stories, through real market research, and also have that emotional equity to kind of connect all those synergies to produce a patient profile that would make sense. And even feedback from your HCPs. What do your patients look like that you see every day? Like, what are the real lived experiences of your patients? And I think across every product, there is a lot of, I would say, lifestyle friction that happens with patients that also goes into the patient profiles. It's important for doctors across the board to recognize. If one doctor recognized it, there might be several other patients. For example, I work in Ngenla. It's a brand that treats pediatric growth hormone deficiency. And a complaint that comes up a lot is needle pain, needle phobia with kids, or looking at different pen sizes, making sure the pen is comfortable in the kid's hand. So I don't think that you have to have a kid that has PGHD. I don't think that you have to be a Black person or Asian person to market to those specific markets, but I think you just need to be self-aware enough. And often enough, some teams do, some teams don't, but I think we also need to talk more about EQ when it comes to marketing, because just having that baseline awareness of the world around you and how it's constantly evolving, I think will make you such a better marketer.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sabrina and Kiana. Any additional questions? Yes. Right in front of you.
Well, first off, my grandfather actually passed away from prostate cancer, so it definitely means a lot just hearing everything. But I wanted to know, I know going into these rooms and then having that open eyes and mindset is very tough. How is it perceived, I guess, from the folks at Pfizer or where you work, that you're opening and you're speaking up and you're making these comments? Do you find that you get like a warm welcome, or do you have to kind of struggle a bit to get your voice heard?
I think it's expected, and I'll give you a perspective of what one of my mentors and old managers kind of told me. Often enough, as we're developing as young professionals, and this is something that you need throughout the duration of your career, you might have heard of executive presence. You have to come into these rooms not only prepared, so being prepared, which will drive confidence in how you ask and position these questions and give your feedback, but being prepared means knowing the therapeutic area, knowing the landscape, and knowing the brand strategy, and knowing the problems that we're facing. They want to hear from you to come in to give new perspectives. And I think it's kind of almost, I can't speak from everybody's perspective or every company, but my own perspective. It can almost be looked down upon in a negative way if you're not proactively asking these questions or kind of challenging things. I think being able, when you're ideating and you're refreshing or you're going through your new strategy, it's a lot of back and forth of challenging ideas in a supportive, respectful way. But if you're not willing to challenge ideas and talk about them and collaborate with them, how can you come up with the best possible outcome? So I would say be bold in that way. And, if you work for a company that doesn't encourage that, maybe it might be time to look for other things. Because I want to work for the best of the best. I work with the brightest people in the world, and I think we have excellent products because we do exactly that.
All right. Any final questions, comments? Nope. All right. Wonderful. Thank you, Kiana. Appreciate it. All right. So we're